Hello, welcome to this podcast about circular economy. This is a podcast organized by Project Tellus, Rethinking Tourism. And today we have with us our project partner, Daniel. We'll ask him to introduce himself. Hello, Daniel.
Hi.
How are you?
It's great to be here. Enjoying the sun and the spring.
Good. You're in Norway, speaking from Oslo.
Yes. So we're based in Oslo, and we just work with, among other things, with circular economy. Right. But a little bit about me. I'm a trained engineer and architect, Romanian at origins. I moved to Norway in 2004, and I've been working both with architectural and engineering companies, and lately I've been focusing, in the last 3-4 years, I've been focusing on BIM as a data-driven support for the built environment, and circular economy as a need to really transform the built environment into a sustainable one. Cool. So that's briefly about me.
Very complex stuff. And obviously, you're a specialist on circular economy and built environment. And that's why you're our project partner, obviously. But given that today is Earth Day, 22nd of April, we wanted to discuss a little bit more about circular economy from a broader perspective, why it's important, and why is it so relevant to think about circular economy as something that impacts everything on planet Earth, and why we should think about it from a holistic perspective. So I would just like to hear your input on this.
So why? How should I put it? I think that the main reason why circular economy should be the main economical frame of development is that we simply are on a finite planet. The model, as it has been in the last 200 years, has been a linear model that considered the natural resources as an infinite pool of resources, which shows that there is already a problem there. You cannot have in a finite system an infinite usage of resources. And I think that is the main reason why we have to rethink our economics and our way of living, and in this case, the building industry. The second reason is that if we look at nature, nature has been here before us. We are part of nature.
Yes, we're a very small part.
A very small part, but now we got, at least from the point of view of the effect that we have on nature, the dominant species. So if you look in nature, there is no linearity. Everything is closed in a loop. You use, and what you don't use, it becomes resource in another form. And that allows the closed system actually to grow and expand, but within its limits. So that is a very good inspiration that I think that we should have in our economy and day-to-day life and in the building industry. The second thing is that, which I briefly named, is that in nature there is no waste. Everything that becomes unnecessary in the previous form, it becomes necessary in a different form. And that is something that I would point, that is one of the main differences between the linear economy and the circular economy.
So you close the loop by designing out waste.
Yes, you have to close the loop. And actually, as the saying goes, waste is actually material without identity.
That's cool.
And what's his name now? I'm really sorry. Is the founder of Madaster, which is a very interesting Dutch company that started a few years back, and they are looking into this, putting an identity on waste in the building sector. And they have done amazing things. I think that they will be launching in Norway now. So we have to look at it like this: why there is waste? Because we haven't identified yet how we can reuse it, or what type of resource there is there. So I think that we just have to change this paradigm from a linear approach to a circular approach.
I'm curious about something. I participated yesterday in a workshop online, of course, where we talked a lot about waste, and in this case, food waste. And we discussed how sometimes it's a matter of perspective and how you feel about this waste. For example, in Portugal, many times there's this kind of shame in getting secondhand things, or in asking to take away the rest of your meal. You're kind of embarrassed about it. I have no idea why, because, you know, taking the rest of your meal for me just makes sense, and getting secondhand clothing is just, it makes sense. But do you feel that, at least in Norway, is there this feeling as well?
Yes, but I think that there is a change in the society. So, of course, Norway is one of the countries, unfortunately, that has one of the highest usage per capita. I think that's our overshoot day. We have just passed it a few days ago for 2021.
For 2021,
so that the sustainable resource use for Norway is behind us. Everything that we use now until the end of the year is going to be on credit from future generations.
Yeah.
So I think that, but what I've noticed is that there is this change. People are becoming more aware that actually buying stuff is not necessarily, is going to give you that dopamine input at the moment. And we are quite dependent on that. But I think that we as a society, we got into this wrong perception that actually that type of dopamine can be given just by new stuff. And if you look into it, we need new experiences. And the experience that something gives you doesn't necessarily have to be something that is has been just produced, transported from the other side of the world, and in a plastic bag to get that. So I think that and we have noticed in Oslo that there are a lot of secondhand shops, and the young generation, I think that they are more and more into it. But not just the young generation. When we moved into this apartment where we live now in Oslo, we moved from Bergen. I said, okay, I'm preaching about sustainability. I'm always talking about it. But now let's see how hard it is to do it. And actually, the entire apartment, except 2 pieces of furniture, everything has been bought secondhand. Everything.
You mean the furniture, not the apartment construction?
No, the furniture. The furniture in the apartment. So everything, the sofas, the bookshelves, everything. To begin with, was a much longer process. So I think that I have used like 3-4 months to furnish the entire apartment, instead of just going to the shop and in a matter of a week getting it fully furnished. On the other hand, I think that the side effect, despite if you look also the price, I think that the price of getting things secondhand was like 20% of what it would have been for new stuff, because I had 2 criteria: to be used and to be made out of wood. And that was something that in the end created a very nice feeling in the apartment, I think. But there was another side effect also. We tend to appreciate new stuff, new furniture, new apartment, new cars because of the smell of new.
Yes.
But if you really analyze where the smell of new comes from, and the volatile organic compounds that are in the glues and all the materials that give us that happiness of new, actually parts or most of the that smell from the VOC, from the volatile organic compounds, are things that shouldn't be actually inhaled by humans.
Yeah.
So
we shouldn't be contacting with them.
Exactly. So we had a side effect that actually everything that we have bought had no volatile organic compounds anymore, because it was wooden furniture, handmade in the 70s, Scandinavian design, perfect, really nice. And so I think that's actually buying secondhand, you can have a lot of side effects. So it works. It works, and I don't think that it is necessary to buy new stuff.
And it's possible, which is sometimes people think that it's too hard or you can't find it. But actually, now that you speak of it, you say there's a lot of shops secondhand. In Portugal, we have this institution for people who are recovering from drug addiction. They get boarded into an institution of their own free will, of course, and then they give them jobs, and the jobs are always picking up furniture that is on the street or people don't want it anymore, bringing it to the shop, repairing it, giving it a new look, and then selling it for ridiculous prices. Like something that will cost you 500 euros, you can get it for 10, 20, 30. So, and this has existed for a very long time in Portugal, and there are several associations doing this, so it is possible. Yes, absolutely.
It is, and I think that there are Oxfam in Norway. There is Fretex that is doing the same, but there are a lot of other small shops that started to do that.
Yeah.
Here it has been quite a tradition to do that. I know in Bergen there was and it still exists. There is a shop that sells light appliances. And if you really want to find Arne Jacobsen lamp, you go there because it's going to be probably half the price.
Oh, wow.
And you have you have the original ones. So I think that this secondhand actually has existed, but it was probably limited to design pieces. But now we are getting into having secondhand shops which have a much more varied offer, from clothes, from
everything.
Everything. And also is if you just look at the sharing economy, probably now in the COVID times is not the best time to talk about sharing economy. But hopefully we will get past COVID soon. And sharing economy points towards exactly what we have to look into, because what you need when you have a drill, you don't need the drill. You need the hole in the wall.
Yes.
And why should you buy
a drill that you'll use twice?
You can just borrow it, and it's going to be a fraction of the cost.
You can do products as services, which is a new thing. Instead of buying light bulbs, you rent them, and then if you don't need them anymore, return them to the shop.
Yes, and probably before COVID, you have passed Amsterdam Schiphol airport.
Very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly. Anyway, Schiphol, they have stopped buying light appliances, I think in 2018, 2017. And they made a contract with what was Philips then, now I think is called Signify. And actually what they buy the effect of the light appliances, because they need light in the airport. They don't need the light appliances. And the light appliances are owned by a different company that actually delivers light as a service. And that has a lot of side effects. Of course, for the airport, they have a better control over the maintenance costs. But for the producer, for the manufacturer, they started to think that actually the light appliances should be upgraded, because that was one of the biggest challenges in light appliances, that you had a model of a light appliance, and if there was an upgrade or a new technology, it was very difficult to, if you just think about the light bulbs, there was no standard. So actually you wanted to use a more efficient element. You couldn't with the old light appliance.
No, it's a whole thing.
Everything.
Yeah, you change the whole thing.
When you sell light as a service, actually you as a manufacturer, you have in mind that you are going to be paid a certain amount of money. So if you want to increase your margin, you have to think more long term. You have to think about how you can upgrade your appliances, because you don't want to throw them all the time.
Yep, absolutely.
And that has changed dramatically the approach in how they design the light appliances, and this is really successful. So
it's an example.
That is just an example.
All
and
right.
I think it's happening in a lot of sectors. So
in some, not as many as we should, but in some sectors, yes, they're designing products as services, and just the fact that they're designing it in that way means that they design it differently in terms of structure.
Yeah, I would give another example from a Norwegian company, Moelven, that started to deliver interior walls as a service, because in the building sector, in a lifetime of a building, of an office building, 60% up to 60% of the footprint comes from the interior walls and the flooring and the ceilings, because you have a change of those according to the new company that rents there, which is happening between 5 to 10 years. You just throw away everything that is inside and you refurnish it. And Moelven said, okay, how can we solve this? And they have developed a system of interior walls that actually can be dismantled and moved. So when you don't need that meeting room or that office layout, you don't have to throw it away. You just unscrew it, you and send it back to the, and like this, you can change the layout. So that is, I think it's happening in the building sector, but it should be a little bit faster, probably.
Yes, but good that you're focusing on the building sector, because you just said that how much percent of interior walls are responsible for the CO2 print?
It depends. I think that usually putting numbers on things is quite tricky, because you have to analyze the context and all that. But in Norway, is about 60% of the footprint of
that's massive.
It's huge.
So,
it's huge.
Given that you're obviously an architect and a circular economy specialist, and given that it is still a very new science in terms of applying circular economy to construction, what advice can you give to architects or constructors or even engineers? What should they think of if they want to at least apply a little bit of circular economy to the construction they might be designing or building?
I think that there are several aspects, and building sector is quite a complex one, and is quite a massive sector. If you look at if you think that is called the 40% industry,
yeah, it's 39%,
40% roughly of the carbon footprint of the energy consumption comes from the buildings, building and maintaining them. That's huge. So actually the improvements in the sector will be massive and will have a massive impact. I think that one of the main advices is that they should consider the dismantling of the buildings. That the buildings are not permanent. So whatever they design, it should be updated, upgraded, or changed, or dismantled. And that is quite an important part. And I'm writing now an article for a Romanian magazine where they asked me about the green architecture. So personally, I don't agree with the term green, because I think it's misleading. But that's my personal opinion. I think it should be not connected to a color. But because nature doesn't have just one color, it has a lot of colors. But what I'm one of the topics that I'm addressing in the article is that we have to look at the maintenance of the buildings in the design phase. We have to consider the buildings as a living entity, something that has to be changed to the new needs in 20, 30 years from now, and should allow a maintenance of that structure. And when you have this mindset, then it is much easier to have this approach and think about the building elements, the details. Just to give you an example, what can have a huge impact is that usually the materials, they have different lifespans. And when you have a wall, of course, you have to put more materials in that wall. And one criteria to have is that you should always think that the material with the longest lifespan should be at the back, because if you want to change something,
it's harder
it should
to
be
reach.
the material that should be changed, because otherwise, if you invert this, you're going to throw away a material that maybe had a much longer lifespan. And also you have to think about the maintenance and the pipes and all this. So it's a holistic approach that should be considered. And when you have this holistic approach, that means that as a designer, as an architect, engineer, or whatever specialty you have, it's much easier to create something that is going to last longer. So it's a question of mindset. But that requires something that a lot of people talk about, which is cross-disciplinarity. We have to start working in cross-disciplinary teams from an early stage. We are, as a society, we have become something that is highly specialized in a field, but actually you get not to know anything about other fields.
You're closed in your own box.
Yeah,
you're boxed in.
We have a lot of moving bubbles around. And it's not just about the building industry, it's about everything. We tend to create our bubbles, to be experts in our bubbles, but actually we solve a problem in our bubble, but we generate thousands more in other bubbles. And to avoid that, we have to be more open-minded and more interested in cross-disciplinarity. So I think that is another huge requirement for circular economy, to be curious about other disciplines.
Other things.
Yeah.
Or at least include someone in the team that knows about other things and can give an input. Absolutely. All right, so we're approaching the end of our webinar. Do you want to tell us about any new projects that you're working on?
Yes, of course. I've started last year because of my experience working with circular economy and BEAM and digitalization and refurbishing. I understood that actually one of the key elements is that one should have access to the right type of data to take the right decision. And if you look at it, a lot of the decisions that are taken into the building industry are perceived to demolish a building, for example, is because of the risk perceived of not knowing what there is in this building. And I've been involved in several projects where actually the window of opportunity to reuse the materials was extremely short. And during that time span, which usually is few weeks, you don't have time to get volumetric properties of the materials, quality, and so on. So that is why I got to start a new company last year as part of the Antler Venture Capital program here in Oslo, which is called AgainX. And what we're trying to look at is to look at the entire building stock, and actually to look at it not as quite so unique buildings, but actually to look at the typologies and the elements that are the same. And that will allow us actually to look at absolutely every building and to have a probability model. We're using artificial intelligence, machine learning to get to it, but to have a probability model about the building content and what it can be done with it. And our main purpose in the company is to extend the life of the existing buildings. Because if you manage to understand what you have, it's much easier actually to extend the life of that building and to take the right decisions. But also some buildings, they should be demolished for different reasons. But that means that to really be able to reuse the building elements or the materials by knowing in advance, few years in advance, is much easier to reuse them in a different project. Because you have all these properties that can be given to the design team architects and engineers, and they know what to expect and how to use them. So it's much easier. I think that that is also part of the holistic approach in the building industry and the circular approach, that if you really want to think circular, you have to analyze and identify what do you need, when do you need it, and how you're going to get it. So, and that is what, again, X is trying to do for the entire building stock. We start with the commercial buildings, but eventually we are going to move into residential. To have this mapping beforehand. And we're looking at the carbon footprint, embedded carbon footprint. We're looking at the maintenance, predictive maintenance costs. We're looking at the embedded energy. We're looking at the toxic materials. We discussed about the VOC. And we look also at the flexibility of the buildings, because just by understanding what will be the cost to change the function of a building, that will allow the building owners to take proper decisions and actually to extend the life of the building, instead of thinking that, no, this one doesn't fit to the requirements in 2025.
So let's demolish it. Absolutely.
So and to get, as I said at the beginning, circular economy should be much more inspired from the nature. There is no waste. It's just a continuous loop. And we can do it in...
Correct me if I'm wrong, that's called biomimicry?
Yes. I have actually a colleague here in Norway that has started biomimicry in Norway. And we had fantastic, amazing discussions about all these processes. And when you get into it, you understand that actually looking at the nature never, how shall I put it? Nature is extremely cautious with the resources. Never builds more than it is required.
Yeah, then they need.
So always you have this balance. So that is, biomimicry is a very good example.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Best of luck with your new project. And thank you for accepting our invitation to be here. It's been a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. So
thank you.
Looking forward to talk further on the Tellus.
Oh, yes, absolutely. We'll have a series of podcasts, webinars, whatever you want to call it, all about, circular economy, some about regenerative tourism, but keep an eye out for our website, www.tellus.pt, and all the info will be there. Thank you very much. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
Bye.